everyone. It is Jazz Cole today on this very hot summer's day. And I basically am here to tell you my top 5 misconceptions of multilingual that I hear a lot, and I want to clarify some of those for you as well. So the first one I will just say is fluency. I have had in the past instances where people assume that because I speak multiple languages, such as right now it's going on 10, but the thing is that my fluency basically decreases down the line of how many languages I speak. So out of all 10, I would say the first 5 are the ones I am the best at. That is where my strengths really are. As further down the line, a lot of the languages I've learned have been primarily out of relationships. Like, for example, I had a roommate who was from Italy. So I spent more time learning Italian because I knew I had someone to speak with. It really just depends on the environment. Like, I learned Portuguese because I knew people at my church who did speak Brazilian Portuguese, even though I had already been learning Spanish, and so it really made it easier to make that transition to go into learning that. A lot of them were actually out of curiosity. I know 3 words in Arabic, and I'm hoping at some point, like later on, to get to those. My fluency, like I said, it really just depends on when I need those languages. For the most part, I have not had any need to speak Arabic at any time in particular recently, but I know that at some point I do plan on getting back to that when it becomes relevant to me, if that makes sense, because I'm already maintaining so many other ones. So when we say that we speak 10 languages, that does not mean like I am fluent in 10 languages. It means I can say something in all of these different languages. So that's basically what I would say there is fluency really just fluctuates depending on like how far down the list you go in the order in which you started learning that language. The second thing I will just say is that there's this assumption that we know every single language, or we know something about every single language, which is actually false. I will just say my specialization is in Latin-based, like phonetic, romantic languages, or even Germanic. So basically everything on the western side of Europe, I speak basically all those languages, from French to Spanish to German, Italian, Portuguese, Dutch, Catalan, Frisian, basically that realm of Western Europe. Eventually, maybe I'll be able to move into more to other ones just because of the fact that there's with psycholinguistics, it's easier to kind of like with German and English and Dutch, I can basically move more so into the northern part of Europe, just because I would just say it. I'm trying to figure out the right word. It evolves. So even like, for example, from learning English and then learning German, they're relatively the same. They're both Germanic in many ways, but and they share a lot in common. But then when I also move into Dutch is similar to English and German. So it kind of evolves into that sort of sense and that particular kind of language. And then as I go further, maybe in Swedish or basically like Finnish, or basically moving further north, it would basically be a little bit easier for me to understand or to be able to pick out words. Would I be able to speak it? Absolutely not, because that is not what I'm trained to speak. But because of the fact that I have, like with sociolinguistics, because of the fact that they're all connected in some way, shape, or form, linguistically, as these groups of people move out into different cultures, it makes it to a point where it's a little bit easier. We can somewhat be able to understand words or cognates from each other, but that does not mean that we'll be able to speak those other languages. I don't know any Asian languages at all. So I'm actually terrified to get into that territory, just because it is a completely different form of language. Like it is, I've heard that Korean is like the easiest Asian language to start learning, but when you get into like languages where it's all based on characters, and as a person who natively speaks a phonetic language, it kind of is making the transition is a little bit different. It's different, but I feel like I'll get there at some point, but I'm just terrified. I'm just terrified just because of the fact that it's so completely different than what I'm used to learning. The other thing is that all we do is study all day long. Like, oh, you speak so many languages, so you must spend all your time just learning and studying all these different languages. That is also false. I'll be honest with you, I've gotten to the point where, for me at least, I have a lifestyle around language learning. So for me, it's more of like my devices are in another language, right? It was in French, but now I changed it to Spanish, just because I'm working on a contract with a potential client that I'll be teaching Spanish to. So I want to make sure I'm refreshing and maintaining these languages, because regardless of being able to teach it, I still need to make sure I'm maintaining it. So when I'm speaking it, I'm not speaking Frañol, I'm speaking Spanish, Español, not Francais, Español. So I will just say, for the most part, we don't really study all day. I try to make it more fun because of the fact that I don't listen to much music in English. I just do exactly what I normally do. It's just not in English, and I just get used to it. So I don't really have to study all the time. I'm used to being able to read articles. I have a VPN where I'm used to changing my location and actually researching, especially because I teach more than anything else. So a lot of the times I'm reading and trying to find resources for my students, which I would have to do that anyway, but it's just easier when I can do it in another language, and it's like maintenance and then also doing my work. My computer is the device settings itself is in French. So no matter what, when I restart my computer, it's in French. When I feel like if I'm traveling to different places, I usually will change my device settings based on where I'm going as a refresher, but I don't do anything different like, oh, I need to read this book, or I need to go out of my way outside of my lifestyle to actually accommodate those things. I read books. I read anyway. Like if you don't read, it's just like, if you don't read often and it's not a thing you do in your free time, it really won't really matter. But for the most part, I try to make sure that I'm maintaining it by just changing what I'm looking at, and my brain is just adjusts. So I don't really study all day long. And then even on that note, is always study is just language, and that's it. Like I've seen where a lot of polyglots will talk about how they study like grammar all day, or they'll study like punctuation, or they'll study things like vocabulary, which I actually do not teach vocabulary. I don't even do, that's not my thing. My thing is mostly where I just learn as I go. It's more of like I expose myself to things that I need to get exposure to. Like I watch the news. Might as well do that in French anyway, because I'm already looking at it, and I learn new vocabularies as I'm listening and paying attention to context of how they're saying and how they're saying things and how they're referring to certain things. So that's just how I've taught my students to really be able to learn how to teach yourself through real life experiences. And also being able to know, I spend a lot of time researching culture, because at the same time, for me as a polyglot, I never teach my students just language. I always teach culture. So it's like every lesson that we have, it's more of I teach a concept and then I give some form of a reading passage to read. And it's usually something like, not like the cat went to some cat in a hat, or like some like baby like basic thing. I give them real life examples. I'm like, this is really what you're going to be looking at, and like news articles or like interviews, or transcribed interviews. So I always do that, so that even though like they'll look at it at the end of the lesson and they'll be like, I don't know what this is. I'm like, I'll help you along the way, but I want you to read this out loud to practice pronunciation, because that matters. It really matters. Pronunciation matters. And then also I make them read things, and then I don't ask them what certain words mean. I make them read like a sentence, sometimes a paragraph, and then I'm like, hey, do you understand what you just read? Like, I need you to tell me what you understood, because vocabulary is not going to help you. Like, learning what one word means literally is not going to help you until you're looking at the full context of what something is being said. I always teach that. And I also teach that with culture insights like news articles and things like that, pop culture articles as well, because you're getting a sense of what's going on in these countries, so you can actually have something to talk about with native speakers, not just look at me, I can speak French. It's like, no, I can actually talk about something that's actually relevant, and be a part of conversations that normally you wouldn't be a part of if you didn't know that language. And then my last misconception that I get often is that we are teachers of language. It's like, oh, you know that language. She's like, can you teach me? I tell people tell me that all the time. For me, of course, I do teach it, just because that's just what I do. But I just will say that a lot of people I talk to who do speak multiple languages, they don't really teach it because, they're still learning themselves. For me, I feel like teaching is how you learn, but a lot of us aren't like the best at teaching. It's like, oh yeah, like she speaks so many languages, like she can teach it. And I'm like, no. I'm like, no, I don't. I'm like, for me, yes, but from other people, it's like, from other people that I've met, it's like, no, I'm just learning it for my own purpose. I'm not trying to teach it. Sure, we can practice together, but it's like, oh no. So it really just depends on who you talk to. There are some people that are really good at teaching languages. I wouldn't say I'm the best. I would just say that, I'm going to be honest with you, there's a lot of better people out there that can teach than I do. And I don't really have any formal training other than the fact that I'm just really good at taking complex ideas and simplifying it for the average beginner. My specialty is beginners because I have the patience for it. Other people, they're like, I just learned this and I don't have patience to teach it to someone else. So it really varies. So I really hope that this really helps you understand. So I really hope that this helps you get some sense of idea of like multilinguals, polyglots, whatever you want to call them, that these are misconceptions that I think that are really false, and kind of just hoping that this gives you an insight of even like things that you might think about like with your friends or your family who may speak multiple languages. So I'll catch you next time. Bye. Hey everyone, it's Jazz here. It is the second year of the Learn As You Go campaign. It will be launching this year, the first day of summer. And throughout the entire summer season, we're raising money to support foreign language education within the general education system. We're here to help businesses and professionals who need resources to expand into global opportunities. And then also helping us build our scholarship fund to give opportunities for students to study abroad and to experience what it's like to learn about things that they like, as well as using languages that they have learned. So if you would like to support, please visit our website at languageandpeople.org/LAYG. Help us get you more connected to the world and the people that are in it.